Cosmic Confluence podcast, where we explore the currents that move us spiritually, emotionally, and energetically. I'm your host, Sana, as always. And well, listeners, today's guest has walked the sacred bridge between creation and healing. She began her life seeing the world through the eyes of an artist, but it was never just about the canvas. It was always about connection, about love, about finding a way to help the world feel a little softer, a little safer, and a little more whole. Through art, hypnotherapy, Reiki, and her own lived experience with PTSD and healing, she has become a guide for those seeking not just answers, but profound peace. Her work is a gentle rebellion against the idea that we must always push harder to heal. But sometimes, it's just about surrender, softness, and self-remembering. Well, this is a conversation about strength, not the loud kind, listeners. It's the quiet, steady kind, the kind that rebuilds from within. So let's welcome Elizabeth into the circle. So, Elizabeth, welcome to Cosmic Confluence, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Oh, thank you so much for that amazing, intricate introduction. I don't think I've ever been introduced quite so eloquently before.
And this is so unique and refreshing because whenever we talk about strength, we always picture loudness, muscles, or maybe power, authority. But it's not like that. Sometimes embracing the vulnerability within us is our strength. So we'll definitely have a conversation on this. But Elizabeth, before that, I would love to explore your journey. You spent 15 years as an artist. So what kind of strength does it take to pour emotion into something so personal and then share it with the people out there? And it really requires, a lot of strength and courage.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, any artist in any field is very brave because you take this little piece of your soul and you pour it into whatever it is you're doing. If you're singing, if you're painting, if you're doing sculptures, or if you're writing, it's this part of you that you're then presenting to the world. And then you're sitting there being judged by the world, doing art fairs. That is the art fair people out there of the world, they are the strongest because people come in and they will say anything. They just forget that you're there. And so you have this little part of your soul that you put out there for the world to see. And when it resonates with somebody, when someone connects with your work, it's beautiful because they're connecting with you. And it's such an amazing feeling. I had one young man at one
Mhm.
point come up to me during a show and say, "Is it normal? I cried. Is that I cried at your artwork. Is that weird?" It's like that was so beautiful. Of course, I still remember it because the work that I did was touching him in a way that it made him feel vulnerable and emotional. And I thought that was really a powerful connection. And for me, everything's about connecting with people, and I feel that's why we're here is to connect with each other. And that's what I was doing with my art was, I'd go deep into meditation and try to bring some of that spirituality and some of that higher energy through in my art. And when people connected with it, they were connecting with, the energy of love. And that's what I always hope to bring forward into the world. Even as like a little young child, I knew I was going to be an artist growing up. I remember being 5 and knowing I was going to be an artist. I think my parents set me on this path. I have auditory processing disorder, so it didn't appear to be that I was very smart because growing up in the '80s, especially, and even as a small child, you're hearing everything. And so for me, it was really hard to process what people were hearing or what people were saying and what I was hearing in school. So, and I could draw really well. So I think my parents just streamlined me into this, field of being an artist. And the question I always had in my mind, and this is the child version of it, so it sounds kind of silly, but how am I going to save the world with art? For me, it was always about bringing love into the world and helping this world become a better place, as much as I can in my life. So that's what being an artist was to me.
Wow. And I especially I mean, so much connect with that question you have had as a child. Because as a child, we are full of innocence. And at least if we talk about 80s and 90s and
Right.
to
Exactly.
we we had no clue how the outer world is. We are, just curious. We are playful. We are innocent, sometimes naive. And then we think about, okay, I'm gonna save uh, i- this world, with being a pilot or an astronaut or an artist or a singer or a pop star. And so many dreams and dreams we had as a child. So now when you look back, at that question, Elizabeth, do you feel fulfilled, or do you still feel that, there's a lot to be done? I'm not, satisfied with what I'm doing right now. I mean, what are your feelings, if kind of you get back to your childhood version of you? Let's say you and you, Elizabeth as a child is they're sitting, face to face.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that I I feel in some ways fulfilled. I feel like what I'm doing now, I know I'm helping people and I love that, but I want to help more people. And I'm ready to get out. I have some workshops that are kind of in the works, but I haven't really solidified yet. I'm ready to get out into the world and really get my hands dirty, work with people individually and as in groups. I but So don't think I'll ever feel totally fulfilled because I literally can't. I know that I probably can't heal the world, right? I can't help everybody, but I feel like I'm on the right path at this point. Like I'm watching my trajectory, and as my kids get older, because I'm a mom first, and that's always going to be my first priority is making sure my kids are on their own trajectories and are feeling fulfilled and loved and supported. But the older they get, the closer I get to being able to, grow and get bigger and, affect more people and have more of an impact positively on the world. So, yes and no. I feel fulfilled, I feel like I'm on the right path, and this work that I'm doing now is very fulfilling, I enjoy it, but I wanna reach more people, for sure. I wanna be able to help more people.
That's huge, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Elizabeth. And uh, that is itself a sign of strength. And also, what I feel, keeping in mind what we are seeing today. Um, yeah, it is so huge, and it is so courageous and beautiful to help others feel loved. But then also as a helper, sometimes it takes a toll on on you mentally, emotionally, or physically. We as a parent, as a caregiver, as a healer, it definitely does take a toll. That's what I have learned with so many conversations on podcasts. So how do you hold yourself in those kind of situations, when you get to experience ingrained trauma, that can be from childhood, or maybe horrifying events which are kind of, eating the people inside from within? How do you hold yourself?
So, for me, I face my traumas head on, and I have PTSD. And when I get triggered, everything stops. And I take the moment because especially with PTSD, your tendency is to want to ignore it, ignore it, ignore it, but it's not going to go away. So instead of just ignoring it, I just face it and I look at it and I watch the flashback because I get flashbacks. And I go through it and I do my hypnosis, I get quiet, I meditate, and I allow myself to experience and feel everything, and then I get to the other side. It's not the pretty way, and it's not there's nothing really magical about it. It's just allowing yourself and honoring the feelings that you have instead of shoving them away, because that doesn't work. That's how we make, you know, drug addiction and alcoholism and angry people, is by shoving it down. So for me, the only way to do it is to go right into it and face it every single time. And it's not easy. And I don't always want to look at it, but I just do. And then I get through it. And I have great support from my husband. He's a
Mhm.
good egg. Hmm.
Yeah. That is so important, so important. And I think also uh, other than this, because we are naturally our brains are naturally designed to kind of um, move on and suppress everything. It's kind of also could be because we are in a society which doesn't I'm not generalizing it, but generally it is not, it's kind of embarrassing that you are seeking for help, you are saying that no, I am not fine, I'm not good, I need help, and I'm asking for help. That can be really sometimes misunderstood, uh, and it will make you feel embarrassed. So I think what you said, Elizabeth, is you have to go through it. Sometimes it may not sound good, it may not look pretty, but that's what helps you to go through it. And it sustains you. So I want to understand from you, Elizabeth, about your breakdown in 2023. Was that shift uh, just a breakdown, or it was kind of a breakthrough? I mean, what kind of learnings you have had, from that particular difficult phase of your life?
It was both. So prior to 2023, so COVID hit, right? And I tried hard to hold the light for a long time. I made it all the way to the summer. And for me, what it was all the chaos. We had the um chaos here in the United States and a lot of anger and it was rightfully earned and all of that. But for me, it became I sort of collapsed in on myself, and at that point, I sort of lost my connection with, the spiritual realms, which I've been working with for 20 years, probably. Yeah, how old am I? Over 20 years. And I felt no connection for years. And I kept trying to. I was saying, like, I got to get back to where like who I was, and there was no going back at that point. There was only going forward, and that's what I learned. And then when, I experienced this traumatic experience in 23, it was wild because it was a life or death situation, and I think maybe that's what connected it all of a sudden, I was connected again, and I don't know, I can't explain it. I'd had moments, of course, in those last 3 years of connection back and forth, but, after that experience, I, all of a sudden was just aligned again, and I could feel it all again, and it was incredible, and I knew I needed to get away to reset after the experience, and I went and did the Brian Weiss, he's a past life regression famous past life regression, psychiatrist, and he does these amazing workshops, and I always tell everybody, "If you have a chance to go see Brian Weiss, go see Brian Weiss." He is such a gentle, kind, beautiful soul. And so I did the past life regression training with him previously, and so I went back to just do, like, a refresher weekend, and, throughout the course of that week, just, being alone and doing all the hypnosis sessions and being with other people who are also there for healing and connection and love, and it's such a powerful environment, and so throughout the course of that weekend, I mean, I was still shaking at that point, it was, like, 3 weeks later, And, I worked through all the shaking. I just let my body shake during the hypnosis sessions, which was a little awkward because there was 1,000 people in the room, or maybe 500, I'm not sure. But, I just let my body shake when it wanted to, and I got it all out and started writing again and, was able to start writing for this podcast because it had been since I hadn't put a podcast out, in like 4 or 5 years at that point. So I started writing again and started getting ready to produce the podcast that I'm currently, working on. So it was both a sh and I also in that time period, as you say, like, life gets so busy, after I got through that initial shock, it was a good I had the kids for the summer, and I didn't want we had just gotten through COVID. I was like, "These kids can't have another abnormal summer." And so I pushed through and didn't even realize I had PTSD until they went back to school, and as soon as they went back to school, that was it. I had to take a good 7, 8 months to just
Mm.
feel and live through all the flashbacks and everything, and of course, I was working through it, but a lot of it was just couching under the covers. And I did feel that at one point, probably around this time last year, all of a sudden a veil just lifted and, peace returned. And so it was, yes, both a shift,
Mhm.
and it was, um, yeah, mostly a shift, I would say. It really brought me back to my center, and I'm not sure what aspect of going through trauma brought me back to being centered. Maybe it was having to focus on myself. I'm really not sure. Or maybe it was the life or death situation. I'm not sure.
Mm. Sometimes it's better to not have all the answers, but to just course through forward and try to get back to our own self.
Or get back to the new version of who you are.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And since you mentioned about past life regression, it definitely it's such a powerful tool. Once again, it comes a lot with skepticism. But in your experience, Elizabeth, how can uncovering a past life actually influence someone's present day mindset or emotional strength?
So, our soul has this journey that's so much longer than where we are in this present moment.
Mhm.
And, we don't remember everything, right? Because that would be really hard to remember all the people that you've lost and everybody that you've loved and who's not there. And to remember all the things that you've done wrong, like that would be too much for anybody to bear. So, but we do leave a sort of like a notebook behind. And
Mhm.
we come into this world with a goal, usually, from everything that I've seen.
Mhm.
And we sort of have a plan for what we want to learn and
Mhm.
what sort of things that we want to sort of change in ourselves. And a lot of those are rooted and connected in mistakes or experiences that we've had in other lives.
Yeah.
And so if you're grieving someone that you've lost and you see that you've seen them in multiple lifetimes, that grief gets lightened because you know you're going to find them again. Um,
Mhm.
if you've experienced some sort of trauma and you have pain that you don't know about, like you don't know where it came from, and then you go back and you see a trauma that you've experienced, that
Mhm.
pain starts to sort of make sense.
Mhm.
And you can sort of let it go. You let go of that connection to it. Um, as far as emotional understanding of who you are, I mean, imagine if you can understand where some of your reactions are coming from. If you can understand that you were betrayed in another lifetime so deeply that you can't trust anybody, you might start to peel back those layers of distrust and start to find ways where you can trust someone new. Because you understand that this distrust didn't come from this lifetime and that it's something that your soul has decided to work on. Because when we go back and we find these little nuggets from other lives, we're
Mhm.
we're um those are little nuggets are being shown to us because they are affecting this life. You're not going to be shown something random. You're not going to connect to something that's totally random that has nothing to do with something you're working on right now or that your soul wants you to be working on. Um, you're going to find things that are connecting to what's going on in your life right now. And as far as the skepticism, you know, I always say it really doesn't matter if it's true or not if you're getting healing from it. Um,
Yeah.
although I have had situations where I've been able to prove myself, where I've been able to prove things that were true,
Mhm.
in my own family and in myself. But, to the skeptics, I say, does it matter if you're healing? It really doesn't.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's empowering at the same time. Um, and also, you mentioned about higher self. Um, and this is something which once again, I kind of myself, you know, discovered, learned during so many conversations at in all of my shows on Cosmic that um tapping into higher self or the higher consciousness, it's like it is a journey. It is not everyone can do, but then there is a process. I mean, there are channels, there are tools to do that. And since you blend hypnotherapy with a soul-centered approach, how do you help someone tap into their higher self? Not just as a concept, but as a lived, felt experience, which they can anchor uh, or kind of merge with their real life challenges.
So we do this a lot in hypnotherapy. I do this a lot in my podcast too, where we get really still and quiet. And when you're in the deeper hypnagogic states, where your brain waves sort of slow down. So our brain waves when we're awake, they have these peaks and valleys, and the deeper into hypnosis we get, the slower we get. And in that state of mind, we're sort of able to process things on a slower, deeper level. And so what we do in my work, what I do is I take people out of this world. I'll bring you out into the universe. And from there, you can explore your higher self. You can explore past lives. You can explore anything you want. And so when we're talking about exploring your higher selves, a lot of times what I do is I'll take you to I have this building that I like to go to. And in this building, it's sort of like the Hall of Records, but
Yeah.
bigger. And there's a room for healing. There's rooms for past life regression. There's rooms for seeing your own accomplishments. Future progressions. Like we can do anything in this. It's like a magical building. So what we're doing is we're creating environments for your mind to sort of anchor into, to give you an experience that your mind can hold on to experience something that's very ethereal and um, maybe not concrete in this world. So typically, what I would do for a higher self connection is you'd do something like you'd go out into the universe, and then we usually do like a cleansing wash where you move through this beautiful golden warm light. And when your mind is in this state, you can really experience these things. You can really feel the warmth and you can feel tingling. And it's interesting because your mind can help you experience things that you normally couldn't conjure when you're in this state. And so when we're doing a higher self work, a lot of times we go back and we find ourselves back in this other world that's a little bit like Earth, but not quite. And then we go into this building and you go find a room and maybe you see yourself in there and you can talk to yourself and ask questions and connect with, your higher self as if you're standing face to face. And then maybe we'd merge with your higher self or something like that. But I mean, that's just like an example of the type of thing that we would do to connect with your higher self, but there is 1,000 different ways, which is why I can do this podcast where we actually do self hypnosis sessions in the podcast because there's 1,000 different ways to do everything, and it just depends on the person and what they actually connect to. So I like to do a bunch of different things on the same a bunch of different sessions on the same subject just to, make sure that so everybody out there has something to connect to because we're all going to experience all of these things differently, and we're all going to connect to different styles of hypnotherapy. So, but I do love
So,
doing the higher self work. I think it's powerful.
yeah, it is definitely powerful.
Who knows
Uh,
better than you?
yes, yes. But I think consciously it is tough, right? I mean, do you have like any prerequisites, before someone sits in that session, that they need to have clarity, and any kind of a cleansing session, or it's just like you sit, you connect, you talk, and then you get on to the session immediately.
Yeah, so what we do is usually I'll talk about what we're going to do and what the subject matter is. And really, that's just to put your mind at ease as part of the hypnosis session, actually, it's starting to calm you and put you down into that calm state of mind. But there's no prerequisite. There are, and I've never come across anybody, but there are people out there who will take longer to be able, I believe everybody can be hypnotized, right? Because we are all we all go through the hypnagogic states regularly. It's just a willingness to be able to allow and the trust to be able to allow someone to get you into that relaxed state. But that's really the only prerequisite is that you can trust your hypnotherapist enough to get you into the state of relaxation, which is another reason why I like to, discuss what we're going to do and things like that so that we can start to build trust and you can start to understand who I am as a person and where our beliefs align because in hypnotherapy, although it's you guiding and as a hypnotherapist, I can't make you do anything or believe anything that you do not accept. That's just the way it is completely guided by you and it's completely guided by your own mind. So it just really depends on whether or not you align with the hypnosis that's going on and whether or not you are willing to trust the hypnotherapist to the degree that you need to allow them to relax you because it's in a vulnerable state, right?
Mhm, yeah.
Relaxed and pretty much asleep awake. So
Like letting all the guards out and just surrendering.
exactly, exactly. But anybody can do it. Anybody can connect to their higher selves. Anybody can connect to their intuition. Anybody can connect to the universal love that's available. And actually, I think that the universal love would enjoy it if everybody did connect because it's sort of like when you do find your connection to that flow of love, it's like, where have you been? Like, why we've been waiting here for you to connect. So there's no prerequisite. There's no amount of meditation you need to do first. You can just jump in whenever.
Wow. Wow. And I would like to conclude this conversation. So the times we are in, Elizabeth, the era we are in, so it's like how nature works, that before starting something, or kind of um, resuming, or just starting fresh, nature does this cycle of destruction, um, annihilation, and then starting completely fresh. And right now, what as a in the humanity, we are seeing a lot of bad things around us. There are good things, of course, but scales are kind of not in the appropriate balance.
Mhm.
So a lot of you know discussions are there around divine connection, that oneness that right now we all require, the collective consciousness. But then people would say that that is fine, that is lovely, but then I need something practical, because there's a lot of mess around me right now, internally and externally also. So how do we hold both, divine connection and this human messiness without needing to resolve it all at once?
That is, if I could answer that question, like, straightforward and just really have the true answer, man, I would be, president of the world, right?
Oh.
But I do feel this, and, it's what brought me to this work, to be honest,
Mhm.
because, um, there's so much going on in the world, and we can't fix it all. I feel horrible when I have to swipe past the hungry children on Instagram that come up, and they give you these ads like, people are starving in whatever country, and famine, and then, all of this that's going on. But we can't do something about everything. So my advice for others is pick one thing that you can do something about. And my solution for myself is this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to create more loving space and trying to help people align with love so that they feel better within themselves so that they can go out and help others also feel better. And then as that grows, in my wildest imagination, that grows and grows and grows, and then we don't have these problems because we're all in a place of love and understanding and compassion. I mean, that's the dream. But,
That-
yeah, as far as the balance, I say you just have to pick one thing that, you feel like you can fix or help fix or contribute
mm,
to fixing and focus on that and try to block out all the noise because we're too interconnected. It's, for how much of a mess that we are. Hopefully, it'll start to balance out and we'll be more interconnected and not such a mess. But for now, it's too much. I agree.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And that will be like a chain reaction, in good sense. That
Yeah.
you help one person and then that one person is going to help so many others.
Mm,
Uh, uh, Not always expecting the scale of your or the impact of your work, but just keep on doing it. Uh, and of course, first you have to help yourself inside out. Then only you can help others. So
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we have to feel good and feel connected to love. And when I say like I want people to feel loved, I want them to feel loved by the universe. We all have our interpersonal relationship issues and and some people don't feel that they have someone that truly like loves them and is there for them, but we are
mhm,
all loved by the universe. And if we can connect to that, we can find ways to connect to each other and share in that love, you know? And
mhm,
don't get me wrong, like, I am not perfect. There's probably a line of people who wanna complain about me, you know? It's not like I can but I try in my life, I try to find those places, like someone at the grocery store to connect with and share that feeling of love. And,
mhm,
maybe they'll go home and they'll have maybe a true connection with their child or parent or something because they feel good, because they had a nice interaction with someone? It's the little places that I try to look for love. And then I try not to be so hard on myself for the places where I fail at.
that's true. Wonderful, wonderful, Elizabeth. So, before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, how they can.
So I have my website is elizabethcatherine.com with a C. And there is where I list, everything that I've got going on, which at the moment is mostly my podcast, which is self-hypnosis for healing. So connect with me there. We'll talk for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. If I have a guest, sometimes it's a little longer. I don't do a lot of guests, but occasionally we do. And then in the next session is a self-hypnosis session where we explore everything from belief change to the entire universe. So I'd love to have some of your listeners come join me.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And uh, in today's conversation, Elizabeth, this was really, really that softness and that calmness. I think many of us crave. sometimes many of us resist as well. So thank you so much for this conversation, because this is kind of an invitation for all of the listeners to take a breath, take a pause, and just feel their feet on the ground. So thank you so much for this, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sana.
So, listeners, thank you so much for joining us and being with us in this sacred space. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to yourself and your loved ones, and keep listening to the cosmic rhythm that lives within you. And also, don't forget to connect with Elizabeth. I'll have all the links in the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And thank you.